happening, everybody? What's good, man? We got another episode of the Boston Source podcast here. We're doing it here for Monday, October 14th, 2024. I'm pretty much like in a distant location of sorts, you know what I'm saying? Been doing things as far as like, work and all that other type of stuff, but definitely got this thing going on here, going down here, whatever it is, whatnot. So, just reacting to what's been going down in the boxing scene. There had been a lot of action that had been taking place in boxing. We're gonna be talking about it here, you know what I'm saying? Um, but we gotta go ahead and chop it up in reference to what's been happening there. Big ups to everyone that is going down. Uh, what's going on live on the live chat? Shout out to my guy Light Skin Lou in the building. Salute to you. We got what is it? Brother Derek has a message for brother Matt of Brunch Boxing because it looks like Matt has been on some other stuff here. You know what I'm saying? But that's a whole nother story, man. But hopefully, I get a couple of folks on here to join me on this particular episode as we had some real interesting reactions to what happened on Saturday, as you had that undisputed light heavyweight title fight between Artur Beterbiev and Dmitrii Bivol. And listen, man, that was a good fight. That was a good fight. Um, and I wanted to, kind of like go into it, a little bit because, you know, I was looking forward to this fight. I was looking forward to this fight. We'll kind of get into that there, man. We'll get into that as far as like who I felt won the fight here in a bit. Um, but having two undefeated fighters, they're in the light heavyweight division. Beterbiev coming in there with three of the four major belts, and the Ring Magazine or lineal light heavyweight champion. Dmitrii Bivol being the WBA champion for a while. And we kind of had a long time coming for this particular fight to take place with both of these fighters being undefeated. Beterbiev having a 100% KO ratio. You feel me? And with Dmitrii Bivol also being undefeated there, but had like a lower KO ratio. A number of people, pretty much call him UDVol as far as like unanimous decision. Because out of the 23 wins that he had going into this fight, 12 of those wins came by knockout. Of course, he had that notable win against Canelo Alvarez in 2022, followed that up with the win over Zurdo Ramirez there 6 months later. And a few people that kind of like put him up there in the pound for pound ranks. You also had Artur Beterbiev also being mentioned among the pound for pound ranks as well, with him being the unified champion there at light heavyweight and up to that particular point, stopping every fighter that he's faced. So you had two guys that have been familiar with each other, back in the amateurs and all that type of stuff, with Beterbiev coming in there at 39 years old, Bivol coming in there at 33 years old. And, I felt like it was going to be a great match, but I was picking Beterbiev to overwhelm Bivol with his, come forward style and be able to take the power shots that Bivol would have thrown and walk through them and eventually, wear him down in order to, get the victory and end up getting a stoppage victory. Now I'm just looking at something here actually because I'm live in NYC and someone just sent me a text in reference to tickets here for this Yankees versus Indians game that's going on right now, and you can pretty much get in there for the low. That's for those that listen live. You like you in New York, you get in there for the low. But but I'll figure out like they got a game out there tomorrow. I'll see if I get out there tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna see about that. But yeah, I want to get back to this fight. Two undefeated fighters. Two high level fighters. Two high level fighters. That's what I expected here in this particular bout. And that's exactly what we got. First round was a good start there from Dmitrii Bivol. I thought he was able to work the jab there and double the jab up a little bit. Kept that activity going there while Beterbiev was having a high guard, pretty much high guard, trying to walk forward and walk forward. At the end of that first round, you've seen a good exchange between both of those fighters. And I think that kind of like was something where it was pretty key to, or it would have been a theme. I felt like that was a theme to what we saw here in this bout, right? Because there was a number of rounds where they could have been, toss up rounds. You know what I'm saying? Could have been toss up rounds. So thing about it was that, I felt like, Beterbiev was trying to get himself going as far as like figuring out Dmitrii Bivol, and Bivol was, having a pretty good start as far as like getting his offense going there within those first couple of rounds or the first, 2 rounds or so. You know what I mean? I was a little bit impressed there from Dmitrii Bivol early in that bout because, my thing about it was like, well, I felt like he tried to send a message there in reference to his aggressiveness and trying to put, power behind his punches, So, with him, keeping up that, activity, but then Beterbiev looked like he was trying to have a plan there, going in, to the body very early. You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, I wanted to see how he'd be able to, get himself going. Feel me? But let me see here if I'm able to get my other guests in, try to get him to join in or whatnot. Let me see here if he's able to set up things or whatnot. He's one of our guests here, on the podcast. It's my guy, the Box Academic. Hopefully, he's able to set up everything here and get himself the audio thing working here for a little bit. Because we're having a little bit of a transition. We used to, do the live thing through the yard, but right now, I'm kind of like laying off of the yard here for now and going through Rumble for the live joint. So I'm trying to see here, it's a little bit, for guests to like kind of like get it on and get going to join in. But we will, try to get this thing to where, our guests are more familiar with being under this platform, and then we'll have our shows going as it is. But for the time being, I have to see, how that thing goes. But I wanted to continue this thing there as far as like going from round 1 to round 2. Like I said, Bivol, was trying to continue his activity, offensive activity, there in those first couple of rounds. While Beterbiev looked like he had an early strategy to go to the body early, was throwing like jabs to the body, throwing like right hands as he is, a southpaw there, right? He was kind of like trying to go out there with the southpaw stance and stuff, so he could switch it up and whatnot. And I felt like the thing was him going to the body early was going to be a good strategy as Bivol, I felt like would have had a game plan to move around the ring as he is a guy that has that movement that could go forward and backwards, side to side and things like that. And for Beterbiev, he would have to try to cut off the ring there, a little bit of whatnot. Feel me? So, with that being said, you had Beterbiev go with that particular strategy, having his hands up, and then once he got in range, try to score with his punches, first going to the body and then going upstairs, you know. And I felt like, there in the third round, he had a little bit of had a little bit more success in round three. Pushing around Bivol, leading with that front foot and doing that thing there. But like I said, in round four, you seen Bivol kind of like move around the ring a lot, pretty much on the outskirts of the ring and around the ropes, uh, particularly going to Beterbiev's right. And with that, I was seeing there like with Bivol going to Beterbiev's right, I was thinking that for Beterbiev to try to slow that down, throw the right hand to the body or throw upstairs because you see him, Bivol move over to the right a number of times. So I would say, hey, if you're trying to work towards cutting off that ring and not giving them that option to move away, go ahead and throw that right hook to the body, or try to like cut it off, or at least try to reach out to when you see him try to start to move over to your right, throw that right hook to the body so that when he does start to move and you throw that punch, it's going to be there. Now you don't have to necessarily go upstairs in the head because he can move around the head a little bit, but the body's going to be there. So throw the right hook to the body, whether it gets blocked or not, you'll be able to have success as far as like being able to connect on that. But I didn't necessarily see all that there early from Artur Beterbiev. Not necessarily there in the fourth round and then in the start of the fifth round. But then he was a little bit more successful with that there at the end of round five. So he's a little bit more successful with that on the end of round five. You know what I mean? And with that, happening, I felt like the thing was you had Beterbiev start to get back in it, but then you had the thing there in round seven. And in round seven, that's when things kind of changed there a little bit. There was a point where Dmitrii Bivol looked like he landed like what it was, like a right hook upstairs, and looked like it stumbled Beterbiev a little bit and had him backing up. And then when he backed up, Bivol looked like he was ready to go for it. He was going for it. He was throwing combinations and thinking and all other stuff while Beterbiev was on the ropes and had a high guard and whatnot. And Bivol tried to reach around it and all that type of stuff. But then Beterbiev answered back. And when he answered back, he affected Bivol with the punch and had Bivol going backwards. And he was able to, initiate the offense there before the end of that round. And I felt like that changed the course of the fight because I felt like at that particular time, Bivol may have had like a slight lead there. But then Beterbiev, because I didn't really feel like Beterbiev was, throwing that many punches over the course of like the first 6 rounds going into that 7th round. And then after that 7th round, you saw Beterbiev be more of the fighter that he is or that he's been in his past few fights, and with that being said, he was able to, establish his, strategy a little bit more going in round 8 and round 9 there and kind of, bank a few rounds here and there before, he was able to, get into the 10th round. But 8th round, Beterbiev was more efficient. And you seen there with Beterbiev and his style, he makes sure that you feel every one of the punches that he's able to throw towards you. Unless if he completely misses a shot, he affects you with every one of those punches that he has. Because whether it lands or whether it's blocked, you're going to feel it. And Dmitrii Bivol felt those shots, even with him having a guard up or whatnot. And one of them, it was like the accumulation of those punches had forced a welt under the eye there of Dmitrii Bivol, after 8 rounds, But then Bivol, I felt like Bivol answered in the ninth round with his movement and being more active with the offense, and Beterbiev kind of like going back to what he was doing in rounds, I would say like round 5 or round 6, where he was just like, coming forward, but not really throwing punches. And the punches that he was throwing were all upstairs. He wasn't going to the body. He wasn't going to the body. Then you had the thing there with round 10, and Beterbiev was back in it, particularly in the back half of round 10. Had the offensive push there at the end of round 10. Then you see a little bit more of that. It got with him in round 11. He was able to get in range and do more of his work in round 11. And then in round 12, it was pretty much like all on the line. I felt like it was all on the line in round 12. And you had some good back and forth action in that one. And so when it got to, the scorecards, I felt like it was, really, really close after those 12 rounds. And when the scorecards were read, he had the thing there, 114, 114 even. He had a score of 115, 113 in favor of Artur Beterbiev. And then you had a score of 116, 112 in favor of Artur Beterbiev for him to become the undisputed light heavyweight champion. Now, for me, I felt like it was very close. I felt like it could have been, 7 rounds to 5 either way. I didn't see it being like 8 rounds to 4 for either side. I didn't feel like it was that. But you had like a good amount of close rounds, in between these two fighters, and I felt like that was, the thing, like kind of got it to where who would have the majority, of those close rounds. Now the thing was with, what is it, Manuel Palomo, that scored at 114, 114, 6 rounds to 6. Glenn Feldman was the one that scored it, 115, 113 in favor of Beterbiev. And you had Powell Cardney or whatever, whatever it's called. It's crazy spelling. He was the one that had a 116, 112, 8 rounds to 4 in favor of Artur Beterbiev. Now, all 3 judges scored the 10th, 11th, and 12th round in favor of Artur Beterbiev. And I felt like that was the difference there in this bout. That was basically the difference there, because you had it to where after round 9, right, 2 judges had the fight in favor of Dmitrii Bivol after 9 rounds. So Beterbiev had to win all 3 of those rounds in order to get this particular bout, basically in his favor. What was it? That last one, he had it 86-85 in favor of Beterbiev before those last 3 rounds. But the other 2 had Bivol winning up to that point. And so for Beterbiev to get those last few rounds, he was able to finish. He was able to close the show out and do what he had to do in order to win this fight. So props to Artur Beterbiev, because a number of folks that picked Beterbiev, they thought that he would be able to go ahead and stop Bivol like I did. I felt like he was going to be able to stop Bivol with his, overall strength, power, accumulation of power, and to be able to take the punches from Dmitrii Bivol, because there were a number of times, particularly in the first half of the fight, that Dmitrii Bivol was able to land some good left and right hooks on Beterbiev, and it didn't really affect him that much. It was only like that point in the 7th round where it seemed like Beterbiev had that little pause, and Bivol tried to go for it, and it ended up, it ended up costing Bivol at that point, because you've seen Bivol, his energy, his activity kind of go down a little bit after that 7th round, and that the activity of Beterbiev went up. For me, well, CompuBox had it to where, Beterbiev kind of like stepped it up there, particularly in the second half of the fight. He had like attempted like 70 punches or more in 3 of those 6 rounds on the back half of the fight. And the overall activity there from Bivol was like down around like 35 or average of 35 punches per round, where, like I said, Beterbiev, he didn't throw any lower than 45 punches in any round in the second half of the fight. So, his overall activity was the key here in the judges' view. With them, looking at it from ringside, there on the floor, looking up and seeing what's going down. You know, so but Beterbiev, with that second half going on or whatnot, he was able to properly close the show in that instance. So, props to Artur Beterbiev in a good fight, a close fight, and a yeah, it's something where I feel like for boxing fans that was a fight. That was a fight to watch. You had two highly skilled fighters. Some that have power behind them, and one that pretty much like outboxes a number of his opponents in order to get the win. And they were able to both have a strategic battle there, between the two. So I give props to both of them for that. Now, they did kind of like mention that they were both interested in a rematch, and that it would be up to Turkey Al Sheikh there to see if they'll be able to put up the money there or whatnot to go ahead and go forward with the rematch. And at least for me, in my standpoint, I feel like it warrants a rematch. If they're able to do it within a couple of few months or so, whether it's like February or March, I say go for it. Um, it was very close. Bivol was disappointed that he ended up having his first loss of his professional career, and that he would be right back at it. Now the thing about it is though is this is Artur Beterbiev that is coming off of repairing a meniscus. Because the original bout was scheduled for June 1st of this year, but a couple of weeks before that scheduled time, Beterbiev suffered that injury to his meniscus, which delayed this particular bout. Now, some were saying that with Bivol being able to have a fight there on June 1st, regardless there against Malik Zinad, that would kind of like help him out a little bit. Where Beterbiev, his story, he's had like usually like one fight per year, at least from 2022 and 2023, due to his multiple injuries. And it felt like his movement there was affected, would have been affected here in this fight. But you seen there, leading into the fight, you had the workouts there. Artur Beterbiev was still able to do the exercises that he usually does. Some put up that clip of him, doing those exercises where he's in a push-up stance and he's kind of like alternating from being on his fist to being on his hands to being on his wrist, switching up. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, this fight is gonna be something, because it's looking like Beterbiev is, it doesn't look like his movement is gonna be affected there a little bit. And then when he was going into the ring, he was stepped in the ring, he was jumping up and down, he was moving and all that type of stuff. So hey, I just felt like at that point he really didn't have much problem, when it came to that. You feel me? So that just made it to be a very, very good bout, because I felt like the thing is with the overall movement, if he was going to be affected there, then that would have been a huge factor in this fight. But it wasn't, and you ended up seeing a great performance there by Artur Beterbiev and also by Dmitrii Bivol in this fight. And I feel like it should get a lot of props across the boxing media waves, because you don't really see that many high level bouts there at the top of the top of the divisions, whether it's light heavyweight, middleweight, super middleweight, something like that. At least for me, last time you kind of like seen that was when you had the undisputed super welterweight title fight between Jermell Charlo and Brian Carlos Casano, both of those fights. So I like when it has two high level fighters being able to give their best and give a very good fight there. And you know what? It might not, for some, it might not get that much mention as like fight of the year candidate, but I say it should be there amongst the suggestions. I'm trying to see here if one guest is able to join in. We had him on one time before under this platform, but I'll see how this goes or whatnot. If he's able to be able to unmute or whatnot, because we still had to get a little bit more used to this whole thing or this whole apparatus. What I might do is I might see if there's like another method that I could do a few things here too. So I might do that. I might do that too. So I'm gonna see if I could get that worked up here, within this live portion of the show. Because like I said, we just getting used to a few things here and there on this new live apparatus. But once I get the gist of all that, then we gonna be really cooking here on the Boxing Source. We're really gonna be cooking on that. You know what I'm saying? So and particularly with our guy, our great guest here that was trying to get on here. He had like a number of things here that he would want to say in reference to all of that. So definitely wanted to get them on here to see if they'll be able to join in and whatnot. You feel me? So let's see if we could do that, or I might see if I could get another thing going. You feel me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We could do that. Yeah, able to do it. So you're all good, man. What's going on, Boxer Academic?
That much. I was waiting for your intro. I didn't want to interrupt you. You normally be like my esteemed guest.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Yeah. No.
I know you're used to me now. It's fine.
No. Like I said, I'm just trying to get used to all this other stuff to see how this particular thing works as far as like the audio and whatnot. But I might have other methods for guests to join in through here too. So I'm just trying to see what the best method of it is here in reference to that for the live band. But what's been going down with you, man?
Not much. Just I guess I'll give my take on the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And let me open my scorecard. So you said one thing that I'm gonna say I don't agree with. I guess I could have gave a compliment sandwich, but I agree with most everything that you said in the beginning in terms of how you saw the fight. I'll walk through my scorecard, but then when you said that Bivol's punches didn't affect Beterbiev, I disagree with that. Did they have a Gennady Golovkin effect on him? No. They had more of a Mayweather effect where Mayweather punches hard enough to keep people honest. People still keep trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's between Paulie Malignaggi, his style of punching, which he don't keep nobody honest. But if he's that much better of a boxer, then you ain't gonna get to him. But with him, he can't keep people honest. Versus Floyd Mayweather, he can keep people honest. Versus a Andre Ward, who can also keep people honest with the boxing. And so I would say in the first 6 rounds, it was a combination of both. Beterbiev feeling like power is speed. And so with the velocity that Bivol was throwing those punches and landing those punches, and literally he was landing almost every shot that he threw when he just let his hands go. He landed almost every shot he threw. And the velocity that it had made Beterbiev, be cautious. And so he was very cautious to throw a number of shots. And it was only until we got to round 7 where Bivol was like, oh crap, I'm winning. And I have quelled him so much enough to where I feel so confident that I'm about to go after him. I don't think he can let his hands go. And speed kills. We were seeing that speed was killing. And fatigue kills too, by the way. but and punishment, but and so he got overconfident in round 7, and then he was winning the fight. He hurt him, and then whatever punch landed, it changed the fight night to day. And then, as you said, we had a tale of two fights in round 7, and then the rest of that round, Bivol was trying to survive in a sense. And when I say survive, he was just trying to get his wits about himself and prevent offense from Beterbiev. So I'll just go through my card, but that's the only thing I'll say. Early though, he kept him honest with enough power to where Beterbiev was cautious. And
Right.
if he didn't have enough power, then Beterbiev would have not have been cautious. And it wasn't until Beterbiev realized in his mind, a switch flipped in his mind where he realized I can hurt him. And all I got to do is hit him one time. And then by that time, a switch flipped in Bivol's mind where he was like, dang, he can hurt me. And all it takes is one punch. So, he was essentially just trying to do prevent defense and open it up when he can. But I'm going to go through my scorecards.
All right.
So round 1, I gave it to Bivol. Bivol controlled the round with a jab, and he looked to load up on select shots. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Round 2, I gave it to Bivol. Jab is controlling Beterbiev, and Bivol is throwing hard enough shots to keep Beterbiev honest. Round 3, I gave to Beterbiev. Really close round. Beterbiev shots were more telling, but Bivol landed shots too. Same amount of shots, give or take, but Beterbiev had the harder shot. So, same amount of shots, but Beterbiev landed the harder, more telling shot. So you got to give him that round.
Yeah.
Round 4, I gave to Bivol. Bivol landing cleaner shots, walking Beterbiev around the ring and landing cleaner shots. Beterbiev is not landing clean shots on gloves. And so what we ended up seeing, obviously, was that those shots on gloves were affecting Bivol. Like they marked up his face, but there was no one shot
that like landed straight clean on him.
That landed straight clean on him. That was like I can't think of who hit people that clean, but some people that you hit somebody and they head just swing, like sort of like how Canelo always hit people. Canelo always lands just really clean on people, like he did with the black guy where he landed that clean uppercut, and just everybody he just like he did with Caleb Plant, like he just always land clean on people.
I know you're talking about there.
Almost everybody that he knocked out. I mean, round 5. I said it was a tie, but I was leaning toward Beterbiev. It was close round, but leaning toward Beterbiev, but I called it a tie. Harder shots from Beterbiev, but semi-clean shots from Bivol. It was close with activity and hard shots and landed punches. Like the landed punches that Bivol was throwing, it was effective enough, but then you got to look at sort of just the hard shots that Bivol was landing. But at this point, he wasn't landing like that totally killer number of shots that he eventually started landing later. So round 6, I gave it to Bivol. So I literally wrote down speed kills. Beterbiev threw more shots, but Bivol landed cleaner shots. Bivol also letting go hard shots and throwing away shots to equal punch output of Beterbiev. Bivol was more effective. Round 7, obviously that's where so I said Bivol was winning round, then got hurt by Beterbiev, then got greedy, and then got hurt, and spent all of the round retreating, recovering from Beterbiev's shot. Round 8, I gave it to Beterbiev. Beterbiev control round with his jab, a nice pace to control round. Bivol just covered up and didn't throw until the last 30 seconds. Round 9, I gave it to Bivol. Bivol controlling action and landing select shots. Round 10, my initial scoring, I said it was Beterbiev, but then I put even in parentheses.
Okay.
And so this is the one I said So let's just say I gave it to Beterbiev, but I put even in parentheses. Beterbiev let hands go at the end of the round. Inside fighting may be his way to hurt Bivol. Bivol landed a couple of clean shots, and so this is why I start seeing like, hey, Beterbiev is starting to close the distance. His way to win this fight is going to be going in on the inside, and so that's exactly what he did. And then obviously the last two rounds, Beterbiev won. And then he fought on the inside and kept Bivol defensively retreating and avoiding getting hit with the clean shots. And he won with his pressure. And so let's say two things. 5 rounds for Bivol, 5 rounds for Beterbiev. If I say that other round goes to Beterbiev, now we got 1 even round, which means that it's either going to be that 8-4 score that the people had, or it's going to be a tie.
Okay.
And or if I call it 2 even rounds, it could be all over the place. But let's just say I kept it with my initial mind saying round 10 was Beterbiev, but I put even in parentheses. So I would have to go and watch that again. But I'm just going to say 5 rounds to Bivol, 6 rounds to Beterbiev, and then 1 even round, which means that it could be 8-4 or the 7-5. So couple things. I've already spoke on how Bivol was sort of landing all those shots early and keeping Beterbiev honest and stuff. I'm still here, right?
Yep.
Okay. And was keeping Beterbiev honest. Speaking of keeping people honest, we as fans, we are very interesting. And the reason why I say that is that these two gentlemen go in this ring, they put their lives on the line.
Mm-hmm.
And we stand on the sidelines eating popcorn while we watch these gladiators go in the ring and almost kill each other. So that's one thing. And then let's say, we have our thoughts, we have our opinions. I don't think it's right to bring outside stuff from a man's personal life.
Oh, okay.
To sort of shape how people may view him in the ring or whatever. Now, let me say, people should get justice if they do wrong.
Right.
No one should put their hands on anybody. But until somebody is found guilty or something like that, it's not cool to
really, put it on them to,
crucify a man, and it's all a conjecture. It's somebody's, it's a conjecture. It is accusations. It is whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all could be susceptible to that. Any accusation as a man.
Oh,
and again,
it
ain't right to do nothing like that. I'm not condoning. I'm not saying anything against that. I'm against anybody putting their hands on anybody. But all I'm saying is I don't think it's right to condemn a man before justice is actually served and do it off of
assumption or
accusation / assumption.
Yeah.
And so the thing that sort of baffles me is that when I was in the chat or whatever on the other group, and then they showed the reaction of one of the people.
Yeah, Katarina. Yeah.
What you learn about people in winning or losing, you learn a lot about people.
Yeah.
Like you learn a lot about the character of people when they got the advantage, when they have power, when they whatever. And so, not counting any situation that's going on, because I don't know anything. I don't know all the details, but what I do know, how I saw someone respond, it looked awfully like a person. It didn't look like a person who was I'm trying to mind my words here. Who was cowering in the corner, being feeble. It looked like a
Oh,
person
okay. I see what you. I see. Yeah,
who
that's the way to put it. That's the way to put it. Okay, yeah, that's the way to put it in reference to that. Yeah, I
it
feel what
looked like a
you're saying on that.
person who was like, that's what you get, you B. That's what you get, you buster, blah, blah, blah. And so, okay, emotions not being with aside, right? Because you're
Mhm.
gonna have emotions if somebody did that to you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
But what I do know, I don't know. People can respond in different ways, but all I know is character
There,
in
well, I would say. I guess you would say there's ways to respond to the what I would say the results of someone who does something to you.
exactly.
There's one thing in reference to karma, but how you react to karma happening to somebody that you feel has done wrong to you kind of like affects things a little bit.
And
So in reference to that, now the way that they kind of like reacted to it and their level of emotion may have been like somewhat, kind of like may have turned some people off or something. But like you said, we don't know the full story. That hasn't really been put into, full light a little bit. Now there has been, of course, an extensive, report on it, from our guy, brother Matt of Brunch Boxing. And so, you have something like this, happen. And I felt like it was similar to, the whole dealings with Sergey Kovalev and what, Sergey Kovalev, pretty much did. And at least at that particular time, we didn't get, any type of reaction to, like for example, when Sergey Kovalev ended up getting stopped by Eledor Alvarez, over in Atlantic City a couple, few years back. But here in this stage where a lot of things can be publicized, put out in the open, and everything like that, it sometimes gives like an added effect to how people react or how people respond. And so in this particular case there, you know it's one thing to have that type of reaction, but at least as me as a boxing fan, as a boxing analyst, and everything like that, I kind of like favored. I lean towards Beterbiev in that particular fight. I felt like those last 3 rounds were the key, and that was the major difference there in that fight. The way
let me
that you had your scorecard, it kind of was similar to I was thinking the guy that had it even 114, or at least particularly in those first 4 or 5 rounds there, I think you had like a similar round by round scorecard in reference to that. I felt like the 8th round and the 9th round, at least to me, were well, at least the 9th round to me was a Bivol round. The 8th round was
Yeah,
more
I gave round 9 to Bivol.
okay, yeah. But the 8th round to me was like a toss up, but I kind of lean towards Beterbiev in that. So you have Beterbiev winning, that 8th round, and then the last 3. So that's 4 of them. And depending on how folks scored round 7, I felt like that was the major difference is how did people score that 7th round, given, what happened pretty much in that first half of the fight there with Dmitrii Bivol, and then with Beterbiev kind of like turning the tide there at the last, minute or so of the fight. So I think that particular round was like the major difference there in this fight.
No, I definitely agree. I want to say one last thing on the other topic. I know you transition smoothly. I'm sorry. I'm gonna
Yeah,
be a jagged edge.
that's no problem.
When I watched it, it felt like just a bitter person. It felt like I saw the bitterness, and
Mhm.
and I asked myself,
Almost like a that's what you get type thing.
yeah, but I can sort of see that from a person maybe where they're angry, but it was more like you be like, oh, I don't want to deal with you no more, and then the person bitter and they just want to see you
Like,
burn in a sense.
yeah, right. Yeah.
And having been through that with women that do they care about whatever, like, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna go in transition. Yes, my scorecard was very much like yours.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just wish we was in a world where we would base stuff off facts and not you know
Or just wait out until everything is properly put out to the people, and you get like actual evidence and that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I feel you on that part. Now,
yeah.
going into that scorecard, like I said, it was a very close fight. I wasn't necessarily feeling that 116-112. I didn't feel like Beterbiev had the point where he won 8 rounds. I think that was majorly because that particular judge had rounds 3 through round 7 in favor of Beterbiev there, and I felt like at least with round 4 that was a round for Dmitrii Bivol at the very least. But 115, 113 is pretty much like what I had in that particular fight, and given the reactions to it, and how people are kind of like reacting to the level of fighting that was going on between the two, that it was a great fight in that we want to see a rematch there. And as I mentioned before, pretty much it's up to like Turkey Al Sheikh, whatever it is, to kind of like say, hey, if there's going to be a rematch, let's do it. Now, two things that I felt like was interesting in it was, given how close it was, right? Yeah, you would see, Eddie Hearn be like involved. Of course, he was there front row and everything like that. But to see Turkey Al Sheikh be as vocal and involved as he was in this particular bout, that kind of like was interesting to me. Some folks had kind of like seeing what Eddie Hearn was talking about after the fight and talk about, oh no, mate, this was a clear win by Dmitrii Bivol, mate, and whatever it was. I'm like, I mean, I kind of get it. You're his promoter and all that type of stuff. But, like we were saying, with it being a 7-5 type of fight, when you have one score that's 7-5, one score that's 6 rounds-6, that's a close fight in that you had a number of rounds where it could have went either way. And that's exactly what happened here. You didn't have it where it was like a clear 8-4 or a clear like a 9-3, like if they had scores of 9 rounds-3 or something like that, then yeah, maybe I could see, the angst and the anger or whatever it is. But you as a promoter there for Dmitrii Bivol that was involved in a very close fight against a guy that had a 100% knockout ratio for the undisputed light heavyweight titles, and then it was very close and ended up being a majority decision, or it could have been a split decision, whatever. And yeah, your fighter got the short end, but the performance that he had was there to have people have enough demand for a rematch. And the thing about it is, with the light heavyweight division, these are the clear-cut number 1 and number 2 fighters in the division. And I know that they do have 2 new entrants in the light heavyweight division in David Benavidez and David Morrell Jr. But after they handle their business, that's when you could probably tend to what's going on with that. You feel me? And outside of that,
I got something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So no one lost any stock on this fight, as you alluded to. No one lost any stock. Like the way that this fight was fought, which was so. The interesting thing about this fight to me was that you had 2 guys. Both guys implemented their game plans. You had one guy who wanted to box and get off clean shots, and he did that. You had another guy who wanted to use pressure to bust pipes, and he did it. did they do it for 12 rounds? No, they both did it for about 6 rounds. And then in those 6 or so rounds, when they both did it, and they both did it very well, you know, one early, one late. It just depends on what you like, what you don't like, you know, what you favor. But yeah, no one lost any stock here. I mean, they both deserve well, Bivol as the loser deserves a fight. But one thing I do have to say, in this type of fight, Bivol is probably gonna be kicking himself.
Mm-hmm.
In that, even if he was tired, even if he was hurting, and it's easier for me to say sitting on the sidelines eating hot dogs, right? But in them last couple rounds, he's gotta be on his bike and jab. I know he was so worried about defense. He was tired, he was hurting, so he just wanted to keep his hands up and not get clipped. I get it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you gotta give yourself an opportunity to win. And he won one of them, you know, mid-late rounds by jabbing and moving.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you tired, so you just move and then you jab. You just pop him in the face and you just keep moving.
Yep.
Okay, it's not as easy as I'm putting it because he was throwing more punches, but you got to give yourself an opportunity to win the fight to where you can throw a flurry at the end and win the round. But the only way you do that is by controlling traffic, controlling the action, and peppering him in his eye. And then when you're ready to throw some shots at the end of the round, then you throw the shots. Bivol gonna be kicking himself because he didn't give that effort. He just
he didn't. Yeah.
He just covered up and you know, like, let what's his name throw shots.
Yeah, and that was the thing about it is those last 3 rounds is the championship rounds. You know, one of the examples that I put out there in reference to championship rounds and fights being on the balance is with Vasyl Lomachenko, when he faced Teofimo Lopez and when he faced Devin Haney. You have that last round. You know by any stretch that those fights are in the balance and that the last round could decide who wins the fight. So you got to make that effort in order to go ahead and try to finish out to say, hey, whether it's close or whether I'm able to do just a little bit more than my opponent to win that round, then that could be the major difference in me winning that fight. And with Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez, he wasn't able to do it. Against Devin Haney, he wasn't able to do it. And now here with Dmitrii Bivol, that last particular round, after you've seen Beterbiev, try to wear him down, almost get like a good amount of shots in to where he could have had Dmitrii Bivol down at one point, but Bivol was able to get through that. Now it's all about having that last push to say, hey, this is for the undisputed light heavyweight championship. This is for the unquestionable supremacy of the light heavyweight division. This is a guy around here that's sitting across the ring from me, is a guy that was able to stop every single fighter that he's faced up to this point. But I was able to make it to the 12th round, and I've done, very well against him. Now it's all about, am I able to finish this round, get the better of him in this round, and that could be the difference in me winning this fight. And Dmitrii Bivol is unfortunately couldn't get that done there in the last round.
And to your point, with exactly what you're saying, based on how he fought that round, I would love to hear the round by round, Russian translation going between round 11 to round 12. I don't think they told him that. What you just said, this is for the undisputed. You got to give us this last round. By the way he fought, I wouldn't guess they told him that.
Right. Now, in comparison, going into, like, say, round 8 or round 9 or something like that, they had something where, at least I was able to see it live, where they were in the corner of Artur Beterbiev, and his head trainer there, Mark Ramsey, was like pushing Beterbiev, like, hey, you gotta get this, you gotta go for the knockout, or you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Are you tired? No. Well, you gotta go and get him. You gotta go and get him. Like, they were pushing it. They were pushing, Beterbiev to try to get to or get back to Bivol, or at least at that particular point around rounds 8 or round 9, because at least they felt like at that particular time that maybe Beterbiev wasn't doing as well as they thought, he was going to do there within those 8 rounds. So they just sent that message to him that said, hey, you got to do something here in these last few rounds or these next couple of rounds here to either get yourself back into this fight or to end up, stopping them. So at least they were able to give that push there for Artur Beterbiev. So shout out to Mark Ramsey on that front. But on that other side, I'm not sure if they did all of that. Maybe, I was supposed to watch the replay last night, wasn't able to get to watch the replay, but at least, that thing with Mark Ramsey there, the head trainer there for Artur Beterbiev, he was able to push that to Beterbiev to say, hey, you got to be able to get these rounds or you might lose this fight. And I felt like that was like the difference there in all of that. So like I said, props to Mark Ramsey on that front. And, for him to kind of get that was very good on his end. And yeah, now Artur Beterbiev is the undisputed light heavyweight championship, light heavyweight champion, that is. Now, like I was saying, both fighters are interested in a rematch. I said if they have it within the next 5 months or so, I don't know if I would definitely lean towards Beterbiev getting this win again. And I felt like initially with his extended layoff that would have been a factor there for Dmitrii Bivol. But if they turn around and they have another fight here within the next 5 months or so, I'm heavily leaning towards Beterbiev getting that win again, because with Bivol, I felt like Bivol fought the best fight that he could have fought against Beterbiev, and it still wasn't enough to kind of affect Beterbiev to where it got to that point in that 7th round where the whole fight changed. So I'm seeing here what type of adjustments that Bivol could have in order for him to end up having the advantage in a rematch. And at least initially right now, I just don't see it, because going into the fight, I felt like what Bivol does, he's able to do against guys that might not have the skill level, or where he has a height advantage, a reach advantage, something like that, or if they're not able to move around or move smartly. So that's why I pointed to his 2 wins against Zurdo Ramirez and against Canelo Alvarez in 2022, where in one sense he was a taller fighter, the bigger fighter, and was able to move around a lot better than Canelo at that particular point. So he was able to get himself out of range from those counter punches from Canelo Alvarez, which forced Canelo to, kind of be frustrated out after round 7 to 8 and 9 and whatnot, right? And then with Zurdo, it was just a matter of, Zurdo just didn't have the overall skill set to really keep up with Dmitrii Bivol in that sense. But with Beterbiev, both of them are familiar with each other. So the elements that Beterbiev had, he's able to see all of the things that Bivol could do, but, he was able to implement his own things, whether it was on offense or on defense in some senses, that kind of had Bivol, not necessarily on his game, particularly in the second half of that fight. So I'm like, hey, maybe it could be any other fighter out there in the light heavyweight division that you could probably say Bivol would have the advantage against, but Beterbiev, I'm not sure. Unless we see what happens here coming up in 2025, whether it's at late January or early February 2025, when we have David Benavidez versus David Morrell Jr. And I can't wait for that one either, man. You had something academic?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. That fight will be definitely interesting. Again, I don't know if I agree with you. I agree with you that you have to favor Beterbiev. You got to favor him. However, shoulda, woulda, coulda, if, right?
Mm.
I'm gonna preface my statement by saying that. But what if Bivol was content with jabbing? What if he was content with landing them clean shots without going for it and throwing 8 punches? Instead of throwing 8 punches, he only do 3 or 4 and then got out of there. He got hurt because he started trying to throw 7 and 8 punches, and then he got clipped with something. And so what if he didn't do that? What if he was content with just getting his and getting out of there? And, he didn't lose that round. And then, okay, he would have eventually got tired, right? And then let's say the rest of the rounds went how they went. Like, what if he didn't go for it and get hurt and then change his mental capacity? Maybe he would have got hurt later. Who knows? But I'm just saying, if that round didn't happen where he got overconfident and threw too many shots, would we?
Yeah, that's a what if right there. Yeah, because
definitely a what if. Would we be
at least at that particular point? Like you're mentioning, like his pace was still good enough to where he had that output or whatever it was, and kind of like was more efficient in what he was doing. So that was the thing about it.
And then the moment he got hit, everything got flipped.
Yeah, everything got flipped as far as like his. Well, to a certain extent, it's like his activity was around the same, but he still felt like he was tentative. He was more tentative in that second half of the fight. You know what I'm saying? Because at least like within rounds 4, rounds 5, or something like that, he kind of like was, standing on a square a little bit more. As long as he had the range and the distance to, throw punches, in succession, then he had a little bit more confidence in what he was doing there against Beterbiev.
And he was winning the exchanges.
Yeah. See, with his quickness, with his speed, yeah. But yeah, after that exchange there in round 7, you just really didn't see that confidence there anymore. It pretty much like faded away, and he was just on his back foot and keeping his guard up and everything like that. And there were a number of times where Beterbiev would throw a series of punches, and Bivol wouldn't throw nothing back.
He was playing prevent defense,
and he was preventing himself from winning.
He prevented himself from winning. No offense, all defense.
Yeah,
but I'm saying, if round 7 didn't happen how it happened and changed the psychological fact of the round, because Beterbiev up until that point too, psychologically was different as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that he wouldn't have turned into who he was. I think he would have eventually did what he did, right? But without hurting him, and then Bivol getting off first every time, it was a totally different mental fight. And then Bivol got greedy, he got caught, and then it was a totally different mental fight. I'm saying, yes, you got to favor Beterbiev in the next fight. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, but this fight would have been a little different. That even round would have been switched to now Bivol, and then that 7-5 would have been a tie. And then, maybe the other round would be a tie. I don't know.
Or like a 7-5 or whatever it is. Or you could have had like a majority draw, or like a
majority draw.
Like yeah.
A majority draw, exactly. Yeah. It would have been a majority draw, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but nevertheless, you still got to favor Beterbiev just off of what we saw him, the longevity, his durability to the end of the fight. Bivol sort of drop off, and then him just kind of the way he ended the fight, leave people with a bad taste in their mouth, versus Beterbiev where he finished the championship round strong. And Bivol started it strong, but just finished it like
finish on that, yeah. And you have those instances where you talk about fighters having that second gear, particularly like I say with these championship fights, like when what you do initially may seem like it's working, but then at a point it doesn't. Now what are you going to do as far as like, your endurance, your adjustments and all that type of stuff. And if you have that and be able to implement that in the second half of the fight in order to, get the win. Now, this was one, instance where you had, like a fight in the balance, and one fighter was able to, take over in the tail end and win. And this is, like a second fight. I would say a second fight there over in Saudi Arabia where you had something like that, because the first one was there over in May when you had Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury. And, early it looked like, Usyk was doing his thing or whatever it is. And then like after round 3, 4, 5, and 6, it looked like Fury was taking over, using his range and all that type of stuff in order to, get the most out of Alexander Usyk. But then Usyk just had that second win, that second gear, and was able to catch, Tyson Fury, and then was able to score that knockdown, well, pretty much a technical knockdown there, right? And that changed the whole course of the fight. And then the whole fight was in the balance there in those last few rounds. And it's like, how are you able to finish those last few rounds? That becomes a major difference in the fight. And, at least in that particular instance, that knockdown, was the difference in that fight. Was a split decision in favor of Alexander Usyk, and that knockdown pretty much was the difference there in that one. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, if you didn't have that, it would have been like a draw. So getting that knockdown was the key right there. And here in this fight, having that push from Beterbiev in those last 3 rounds was a major difference in that fight. So, like I said before, props to Beterbiev for having that second gear and getting himself through those last 3 rounds in order to get that win. So there's that on that front. You had like other bouts, of course, part of that Riyadh season card. That included IBF cruiserweight champion Jairo Pataia getting a stoppage victory over Jack Massey. I felt like, that was something where Pataia was going to be able to go by that dude without much of a problem anyway. So that was expected. Expected Chris Eubank Jr. to get that stoppage over Camille Zerameta. Of course, folks talk about, Conor Benn stepping in the ring there with Chris Eubank, and, Chris Eubank's like, sign the contract. And at least at this particular point, looks like the best route for Conor Benn is to have that, grudge match there with Chris Eubank Jr. I don't see where he has a path, whether it's in welterweight, which he's ranked in, or super welterweight, to where he would have any bout that's even close to being as lucrative as a bout against Chris Eubank Jr. So you did have that. You also had that rematch between Fabio Wardley and Frazier Clark. That was a draw in their last bout on March 31st. That was a pretty good bout there on March 31st, too. That was split draw, but then, Fabio Wardley pretty much like broke Frazier Clark's jaw there in that first round. So that was a first round knockout there for Fabio Wardley. Scott Nicholson getting a win over Raven Chapman there by unanimous decision. So that was the second win of, no, that was the third win of 2024 there for Scott Nicholson there. So you do have that. Hopefully she does end up fighting Tiara Brown next, because Tiara Brown, should have like had should be right there, next in line to face her. And then what else they had out there? Ben Whitaker. Ben Whitaker was there against Liam Cameron, and it was a over the top rope battle royal that happened there in the 5th round, and it ended up being a technical draw. Ben Whitaker ended up hurting his ankle or his leg or something like that. So, he sustained an injury in that. So that didn't necessarily, go out in a good result. But Ben Whitaker was getting tagged a good amount of times by Liam Cameron in that one there. So I don't know. And I think with the result of that fight, I think Liam Cameron ended up getting signed by Queensberry Promotions. I gotta go ahead and see if I could confirm that, because Cameron did have a good performance. Yep, Liam Cameron got signed there by Queensberry Promotions. So we'll see if they go ahead and redo this fight here between Liam Cameron and Ben Whitaker there after what happened there with that one.
Does that now guarantee him a win since he facing Eddie again? Queensberry facing Eddie, does that now guarantee the guy win?
I don't know, man, because Ben is under Ben's supposed to be under Queensberry, if I'm not mistaken. But,
oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Either that or Ben. We might be Ben Shalom though. I have to confirm that. But these have been like a good amount of fights where he's actually a fighter under Ben Shalom. So that's where Ben Whitaker is fighting under. That's Boxer, BOXXER. That's Boxer is where Ben Shalom is who is that promotional company. But hey, I mean, I guess props for Liam Cameron to have that particular performance there to end up getting signed. I mean, he was there coming in with a record of 23 wins and 6 losses, and hey, being able to do what he did there against Ben Whitaker for those like 4 rounds or so, hey, he got him a deal. So props to him for that. And they had like what is it, Muhammad Alakel that was there against Jesus Gonzalez in a pro debut. So he was able to win in that one in a 4-rounder. So that was that particular card there at Kingdom Arena in Saudi Arabia. So props to him on that. Real quick, want to get into this whole thing as far as like what's going down. I have to check my email account here real fast because I'm supposed to be getting some news in reference to the full card for the bout that's happening, or the fight card there with Bakram Murtazaliev versus Tim Tszyu for Murtazaliev's super welterweight title. I just received a notification that tickets for that event have gone down as low as $1. I kid you not. Let me see here, man. I don't know if I'll be able to post this on there because Ticketmaster sometimes be tripping online for whatever it is. Yeah, it be tripping online on the laptops or whatever it is. But I did see on there on the app that tickets were there at around $1. Yeah, $1, man. I don't know, man. You can't even see it here, man. But I got that thing from Air Boxing Champions or whatnot on the thing, but you can't see the thing for the prices there. But it does show standard admission at $1. I don't know. Maybe it's something where that particular venue is like a club scene or a bar scene or whatever it is. But you can get in there for $1. Okay. But yeah, that's gonna be Tim Tszyu there versus Bakram Murtazaliev for Murtazaliev's IBF super welterweight title. I had some news in reference to the fight card as I had the interview there with Gary Antonio Russell, and Gary Antonio Russell, there from the interview they had a few days ago, pretty much said that he is on this particular card. So and I'm trying to figure out who his opponent was going to be. So yeah, okay. So they have him in there against Jaden Bernius. So Gary Antonio Russell is back in the ring after a couple years, and he's going to be facing Jaden Bernius there on that card. You also have Yuenis Tejas versus Johan Gonzalez. That's going to be it should be part of that Amazon Prime joint too. So looking forward to that. And then they got Cesar Tapia versus Andriy Saavedra on that, so got like about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total fights on this card. But A number of them are either 8 rounders or 6 rounders. So, I mean, should be able to go through pretty quickly in reference to all of that. But a number of promotional companies are involved in getting these fighters on this card. So that's going to be something right there. But focus on that main event. You got Tim Tszyu, of course, coming back from his bout March 30th against Sebastian Fundora, which he lost by a decision in a absolute bloodbath. Yeah, he was slated to face Virgil Ortiz Jr. on the August 3rd card there that was supposed to be in Los Angeles, but he wasn't cleared for that. So he ends up in a position to fight for a world title there against Bakr Murtazaliev. And, for Murtazaliev, this will be, I think this will be his first defense of that IBF title. Yes, it is, as, he won a vacant title there earlier this year. So this is like a similar situation to, what happened there with, Islam Madrimov, as his first defense of his title was against Terrence Crawford. Now you got Murtazaliev in his first defense here against Tim Tszyu. Murtazaliev is there undefeated 22-0 with 16 wins by way of knockout coming out of Russia at 31 years old. You have Tim Tszyu there, like I said, 24-1 with 17 of those wins by way of knockout at 29 years old. Tszyu is there at 5'8.5", and Murtazaliev is there at 6 feet there. But, Tim Tszyu has faced a couple of fighters there that have been, taller than him there, so to speak. I think, what is it? Tony Harrison is there, pretty tall there, of course. Tony Harrison is there at 6'1". He was able to stop Tony Harrison. You have Brian Mendoza there that's also at 5'10", that, he was able to win that by decision. And we all know about Sebastian Fundora. I'm telling you, if it wasn't for that people's elbow, or whatever they call it, if it wasn't for that elbow, accidental, clash there with that, it looked like Tim Tszyu was really doing some work during those first couple of rounds. Who knows what would have happened with the result of that fight. So with Tim Tszyu, I know that he's, favored to get the win here against Bakr Murtazaliev. It's just that a number of people don't really know that much about Murtazaliev going into this fight, like how a number of folks didn't know that much about Islam Madrimov going into his fight against Terrence Crawford. But we saw the performance there from Madrimov in that particular fight. Let's see what happens here with Bakr Murtazaliev against Tim Tszyu. But I think, that being Tim Tszyu has a different type of style there in comparison to Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is more of like a efficient counter puncher, a guy that will, try to make the most out of his movements there. But, he kind of like reacts to what his opponent does first. Tim Tszyu is not necessarily like that. He will be able to try to establish the jab early and often and be aggressive enough to, give his opponent problems. And we'll see if he's able to do that here against Bakr Murtazaliev there for that IBF super welterweight title. Any comments there from the boxing academic in reference to this fight coming up in Orlando?
Hey, $1. Let's go.
Hey, man. Hey, I'm telling you, if I wasn't there, just get back, man, I'd be like, hey, and just put in a ticket, fly over to Orlando, and just have the joint there and go, for $1. Oh man, I'm probably gonna pull that off or something, man. That would be crazy there, man. But hey, like I said, I mean, you have a number of those fights out there, man. That's 10 fights? Let me see. I said like 10 fights or so. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10 fights. So hey, that would be that's a bargain right there. 10 fights for $1. Why not? But yeah, that's gonna be like I said, an interesting main event there for that IBF super welterweight title. Like I said, you have Yoenis Tejas there against Johan Gonzalez. We'll be speaking with, or hopefully be speaking with, Yoenis Tejas' head trainer there, Coach Ronnie Shields tomorrow. Of course, as part of Real Boxing with Ronnie Shields on the War a Week boxing YouTube channel. there with Joseph Heron. So we're probably gonna get a little bit more about Joanna Celis in that particular bout. Now, Johan Gonzalez, has been out there in the that 154-pound division. Notable fight that he had was against Jesus Ramos there in May of 2024. I was out there at T-Mobile Arena there where he ended up losing by stoppage to Jesus Ramos there at T-Mobile Arena. But he's also been involved in a couple of fights there on Pro Box last year, 2023. So he's a pretty tough competitor out there. So UNSS may have a little bit of something to deal with there from the Venezuelan, but he should be able to get through this particular bout there and climb up the ranks there at 154 pounds. Now, know that there's supposed to be some. There was some more action that was going on there over the past couple of days. There in Japan, you had like what they say, like almost like a WrestleMania of sorts. 2 days of action in the same venue. There, headlined by Junto Nakatani had fought earlier. What it would be like this morning here over on the East Coast. He was able to get a TKO victory in that one. And the other, I'm thinking the other one, they had Takuma Inoue. They're losing by unanimous decision to Seiya Susumi, where Inoue ended up losing his world title, and that was, on the 13th. So a number of fights there.
That's the baby brother in a way, right?
Yeah. Yep, that is. But the thing about it is that they looked like they were trying to set up a few things where Takuma Inoue, as a world champion, was going to be facing Junto Nakatani in a unification bout, and that if Nakatani, Nakatani would be able to be the WBC bantamweight champion, and Inoue, was like what I think it was WBA champ, then they would have been able to have a unification. And if you had Nakatani defeat Takuma Inoue, then maybe it would force like Naoya Inoue to face Junto Nakatani there at 122 pounds. But I think that particular fight, Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani at 122, that would easily be a super fight there in Japan. Tokyo Dome, Japan, that would be crazy. These are the fights that, Naoya Inoue is having there at 122 right now, ain't really cutting it. These guys are just nowhere near his level. TJ Doheny, not, nowhere near his level. You know what I'm saying? Sam Goodman, like, are we even, why would we even bring up Sam Goodman? Like, he was supposed to be the guy to fight Inoue in September. He didn't even do that. So you might end up seeing Sam Goodman versus Inoue before the end of this year. And I'm like, man, he could walk through Sam Goodman. So him being at 122 right now is almost like a waste of time. And it's almost like Top Rank or Bob Arum and them want to see him go up to 126. But if he's able to hold off there at 122 for a couple more fights, then we could possibly see Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani there at 122. And that, that would be the biggest fight probably in Japan's modern, history out there, So that's the thing that I'm looking for in reference to that weight class.
So out of everything I heard you say, baby brother Inoue fumbled the bag like Anthony Joshua.
Yeah. You could kind of say that he fumbled the bag, basically. There in reference to that. Younger brother fumbled the bag. Yep. So,
how was the fight though? Like, was it a close decision? Like, how was it?
Well, with Susumi and Takuma Inoue, because Susumi had like the power pretty much to really like take Takuma Inoue back. And the thing about it was, like, Takuma, I mean, yeah, of course, Naoya Inoue is, pound for pound, like top 2, top 3. But Takuma, really doesn't necessarily have that, thing where he could stand out as one of the top level fighters within that, like say one. I could go down as far as like 112, but I'd say 115 to 118 to 122. Like, would you put Takuma Inoue in that list? Not necessarily. Not when you have, of course, Naoya Inoue, Junto Nakatani, Jesse Bam Rodriguez, that's out there. Like, you wouldn't put Takuma Inoue around those type of fighters. You could have like, who is it? I was gonna say Kosei Tanaka also, but he ended up losing. So it's like putting Takuma around that, that range of top fighters within those weight classes. Yeah, I don't know, man. What was it? Kosei Tanaka, yeah. I thought he would have been up there, but he ended up losing earlier today too. So yeah, that's the thing about it. Now it's like, okay, what are we gonna do as far as like what's next for Junto Nakatani? You'll probably have him have a unification bout elsewhere, there where he could face probably that new WBA champion who beat Takuma there in Susumi or Yoshiki Takei. So there's a number of fights that still could be made. They're out there at 118 for unification for Junto Nakatani, but all signs point to a Nakatani versus Naoya Inoue super fight in 122. It's just a matter of what Naoya Inoue does after December 30th or 31st or whatever super show that they have at the end of the year in Japan. So that's how that kind of like shapes itself out with, So there's that, man. What else would be there out in the? Okay, I'll have one more topic here that I wanted to touch on, before I roll out, and this is a reference to the WBO and the super welterweight division. Now, as far as I know, I haven't seen any or that many updates in reference to all of this, but this is to this whole thing with Terrence Crawford and Sebastian Fundora. Let's see what happens here, because it looks like they had some recent news in reference to all of that, right? So I'm trying to get to this whole thing at least to the bottom of this thing here. Okay, yeah. All right. So with what's been going down between Sebastian Fundora and Terrence Crawford, as Terrence Crawford, of course, had been the undisputed champion at welterweight, which meant he was a WBO super champion at welterweight, moving up to super welterweight, which meant that he would be automatically the mandatory challenger to the WBO champion at super welterweight, which ended up being Sebastian Fundora, of course, winning against Tim Tszyu. Okay. After that particular fight took place, they rendered Sebastian Fundora unable to compete for at least a few months. So with that being said, even with the WBO talking about, Terrence Crawford being a mandatory challenger, they gave a medical exemption to Sebastian Fundora. But at the same time, Terrence Crawford pretty much had that deal signed to face Israel Madrimov. He ended up keeping the status as the mandatory challenger and was able to win the WBO interim title with his win over Israel Madrimov. So then the WBO, they revisited it. Mandatory, called for both parties to enter negotiations to try to work out a deal. If they didn't, then they would call for a purse bid. Those days passed. A purse bid was supposed to be called, but it wasn't. Why? Because the party for Terrence Crawford had requested a 10-day extension for negotiations to take place, which was accepted by the party of Sebastian Fundora. So they had the other thing with the 10 days. Now it's looking like, wait a minute, looks like the whole thing with this 10-day stuff has went ahead and passed or whatever it is, because that resolution was put down as far as like the 10-day extension was on October 1st. We're on October 14th, right? So you got 10 days, 10 days passed. Now it's more about okay, since the 10 days passed and nothing necessarily, went through or happened or whatnot, now they're proposing this whole thing in reference to if Sebastian Fundora could have a voluntary defense of the WBO super welterweight title. Now, it says having Team Crawford have no objection to the foregoing petition and having both parties reach an agreement towards that, the WBO responds in favor of it with the condition that Sebastian Fundora faces a fighter that will be able to be within the top 15. So, but it says like after that, they would have to face Terrence Crawford within 180 days of that voluntary bout. So, I mean, it's something that we kind of knew. I talked about it in a midweek report with Matt of Brunch Boxing, where he said, "Hey, what's going to end up happening is they're going to come to some type of agreement where Sebastian Fundora is going to end up facing somebody, Errol Spence, and Terrence Crawford is going to allow that and keep his status as the interim champion as far as like the WBO goes. All they have to do is just have Errol Spence be ranked in the top 15 in those particular rankings there at super welterweight, which, I mean, come on, y'all. Y'all know how things go. All you got to do is put in some money, send this thing in here. You pay the WBO to enter them in the rankings, and they can do that. Like, come on. You mean to tell me that they already got Errol Spence at number 1 in the WBC rankings? You mean to tell me that they can't put him in there for the WBO? Come on, y'all. Y'all know that. Like, you can put him in anywhere in the top 15. You can have him at number 10, like Slava Spomer. Sorry, Slava Spomer, but you ain't pulling the money that Errol Spence Jr. is pulling. All right? So you could be put off to the side, just saying you put off to the side. Jorge Garcia Perez, you there at number 12. I'm sorry, you can be put off to the side. You know what I'm saying? Fruitage Rojas at number 8. I'm just saying. It is what it is. You can be put off to the side, and it can be Errol Spence Jr. put in there in the WBO rankings before they have this thing pretty much say that it's going to be official between Errol Spence Jr. and Sebastian Fundora for the WBC and WBO super welterweight titles. Okay, so that's how that's going to go. Now, for those, and I'm just saying this because for those that were saying, "Oh, nothing, no agreement was reached between Terrence Crawford and Sebastian Fundora, that Fundora's going to get stripped of the WBO title." Nope. WBO pretty much granted that whole thing where Fundora could get an exception to have a voluntary defense of the WBO title. And who approved it? Terrence Crawford. So how are they going to end up stripping Sebastian Fundora if Terrence Crawford approved or gave the okay for Sebastian Fundora to have that voluntary defense? That ain't happening. So that's going to be the gist of what's going down there in the super welterweight division. So whether it's going to be maybe January, late January, it could be late January, like January 25th or something like that, where you could have at AT&T Stadium or whatever it is, Errol Spence Jr. versus Sebastian Fundora for those 2 super welterweight titles. So that's the thing that I wanted to get in there for other news and notes in the sport of boxing there. But outside of that, that's pretty much what I have here on this particular version of the Boxing Source podcast. Is there anything from you, Boxing Academic, that you want to chime in on, or is that it from you?
No, that's all. I need to go and dye my gray hair.
Hey man, I got a couple here myself, man. I gotta do something about that too, man. I don't know, man.
Man, I ain't talking about a couple. I'm talking about like 80% of my head is almost gray.
Oh,
70.
see, hey, you know what though? I think that's because I mean, see that's because you know, kids and all that type of stuff. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, man. We'll get back into next here with the midweek report on Wednesday, scheduled for Wednesday evening. For those that haven't done so already, y'all check the YouTube channel as we have interviews with, as I mentioned, Gary Antonio Russell, and then also from Francois Scarborough Jr., who will be in action here later this week on Saturday over at Fort Washington, Maryland. They're part of the No Excuse promotions headed by Lamont Roach Sr. There. So definitely check that out. Big ups, of course, to Boss Academic for joining me as a guest, and all of those that have been listening live. Y'all be sure to share the link for those catch it on replay. And outside of that, man, I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.